Right, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. I just want to start by saying thank you very much to Dan and Greg for taking part in this discussion. Worked really closely with both the guys, and I know that they're big advocates of ViewSonic and our educational solutions. So moving on from that, so Dan, could you just tell the audience a little bit, please, about how technology is being implemented at Denbigh School in particular?
Yes, Sam, thank you very much. So I'm Dan, Denbigh School in Milton Keynes. So we have partnered with ViewSonic recently over the last year or so, built this partnership in. Together, we now have implemented a ViewSonic boards across our school. So we did a big assessment of our technology within our classrooms, identified that it was outdated, needed changing. At the time, we had about 5 different projection pieces of hardware in all of our different classrooms. So that created loads of inconsistency with our teachers, a bit of loss of confidence in terms of them going into classrooms and being confident to deliver their lessons straight away. So we made the decision to do a widespread change. We've now implemented 80 ViewSonic boards straight into all of our classrooms with a single cable connector, which then has now enabled the staff to have a much more confident outlook in terms of walking into a classroom, know what they're walking into, and being able to get on with their lessons immediately. So we're very much in our early phase of our EdTech journey or EdTech change. Our staff are still in the process of building confidence with that. But what we have seen in the classrooms is immediately the lessons have become much more interactive. The students are engaging with that technology. Our teachers are able to implement those technological changes into their lesson plans, and they've been able to integrate those quite easily without having to reinvent the wheel. And we're seeing much better outcomes in terms of production and engagement with those lessons. So very much early in our journey, but over time, hopefully we'll see those impacts even more as we go through.
Well, no, thank you, Dan. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a bit louder than that mic, but excellently explained. Thank you. And over to Greg. Greg works as a design technology teacher at Greenwood Academy. Greg, could you just sort of tell me on a day-to-day how you use technology in the classroom? Because I know I've been lucky enough to see a few of your lessons, and I know that it's integral to the way that you teach, and you're super innovative with it. So if you could sort of give a few examples to the audience on how you use the technology, that would be great.
In my classroom, I use a lot of ViewSonic products. I currently use a tablet, one of their mini boards, in my lessons. So when I'm teaching, I'm no longer backing the students because ViewSonic has allowed me to face the students at all times when I'm using technology. While I'm writing on the mini tablets, I have 3 screens within my lessons. So in my classroom, while I'm writing and facing the students, each screen shows exactly what I'm writing and what I'm using, so the students are able to see what I'm writing in the classroom. I've also implemented the use of iPads within the classrooms so that when students are creating their work, we're able to take pictures and use their work and take pictures. We can send them straight up to the view boards, and then we can do informal peer-to-peer assessments right there so the students can assess each other's work, and it improves the learning.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Greg. And I know as a design technology teacher, I'm interested to hear from you, and I'm sure the audience equally interested. Why do you think the use of using technology in design in DT, why do you think it's so important?
I really think it's important because in design and technology is the big part of the curriculum. So while we want to introduce technology to the students so that they're well prepared for their careers and future development, we really want to prepare the students. So the use of the view boards and some of the other technical stuff we have in the class, it prepares them better for the careers and career paths. It also gives them more possibilities and opportunities while we use the technology. Using the view boards and with my mini board, It allows the students to come up to the class, to the front of the class, and present, which is a very important part of their growth as students.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Greg. And now over to Dan. Now, Dan teaches a very different subject to DT. Dan's specialism is actually PE, so physical education. Do you still think, can you explain a little bit about how you find a place for technology when delivering the PE curriculum?
Yes, Sam. So obviously we don't see as much of an impact from our outdoor lessons when we're out on the field, because we can't, unfortunately, at the moment, wheel one of these out onto the field when we're teaching football or rugby. But one of the big changes that we have seen since we implemented these boards into our school in September is the impact that that can have on our indoor lessons, so our basketball, our gymnastics lessons. So what we're now actually able to do is join those lessons when we're working through certain drills, certain activities. We can use the YouTube feature that's on the My Viewboard software, which removes all of the adverts. We don't have to worry about any of that. And we can pull in examples of elite athletes performing the drills and the techniques that those students will be using in their lessons. So what we can do is link what they're learning in the classroom to the real world, give them those opportunities to see actually what they're doing right now in our sports hall in Milton Keynes is what they're doing in an LA Lakers game over in Los Angeles. So we can bring that together, show the students that actually why are they learning this, why is it important they're doing that, and seeing that actually in the future those individuals that are working at that elite level are also doing exactly the same as what they're learning on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. So we've enabled that to, and alongside the videos, we've been able to then annotate those, take screenshots of those videos, and then allow the students to engage with that in discussions and annotate those interactively. So what it's allowed us to do is take that analysis element of our lessons up to another level in terms of how we can enrich that experience and enrich their understanding of what they're learning on a day-to-day basis.
Amazing. Thank you, Dan. And I mean, there's one key theme that I'm picking up from both answers here. As educators, we know it's all about the students. It's about giving and the theme is we're preparing students, we're making students future ready. So I'm interested to see, how do students react to using technology? Since you've been utilising sort of viewboards, My Viewboards within the lessons, have you had any feedback from students?
Since I've been using the viewboards in my lessons, the students are more willing to participate more in lessons. They're more engaged in the lessons while I'm using it, because in my lessons, they get the opportunity to use the actual viewboards in the lessons. They like to come up and annotate and show and be proud of what they've done and to discuss with each other. So since they've been coming, their confidence is growing and their abilities are growing as well in class. So they really love coming to my lessons.
No, I know they do, Greg. I've seen Greg's lessons, and I'd love to have been a student in one of Greg's class. He's got, not only does he use technology really well, but he's got a good rapport with them, good relationships, which is equally important. And how about you, Dan? Can you give me a bit of insight into student feedback, please?
Yeah, so as I said, we're at a very different stage of our journey compared to Greg here with his 3 boards in his classroom. We've got our 1 in there, so we're gradually getting there slowly. But obviously, it's been a big change for quite a few of our staff members in terms of staff that have not been used to using this level of technology in a prolonged period of their career. So one of the pieces of feedback that I've had from those guys in terms of the students is how much they want to engage with actually that technology and engage with supporting the staff member, because there's been at times where even though we've done quite a robust amount of training with them, some of them do forget some of the bits and pieces that need to happen, yet the students are very much willing there to automatically go, right, miss, this is how you do it, this is what you need to do, and they're supporting actually their teacher. And it kind of creates a bit of flipped learning. The students are helping the teacher make sure that their resources are being delivered how they need to. But what we've also seen is a lot of those students that are reluctant to offer answers, to put their hands up to answer certain questions, that when we're putting the synchronized boards up on the view board to allow 3 or 4 students to answer questions at the same time or work on a topic at the same time, the number of hands that go up, because they want to be involved in that. They want that kinesthetic element of their learning to be part of what they're doing in the lesson. So it makes them feel part of that lesson, makes them feel part of that environment. And I think that's the big impact and the feedback, that they love going to those lessons where they can use that technology, where they're not just sitting behind a desk looking at somebody else present, they're actually being up there and actually taking part and being part of the lesson that's being delivered at that time.
No, perfect. Thank you, Dan. And I totally understand the point where you're coming from with how integral students can be to supporting students. I mean, my background's in primary education, and even when you introduce technology to children as young as 6, 7, 8, it is frightening how quickly that they pick things up, because it's just part and parcel of life and everyday school. So I'm sure at secondary school they're pick it up equally as quickly. One thing that we mentioned there was on the teachers. So new technology in a classroom. Can you talk a little bit about the way in which, Dan, firstly, how you've supported your colleagues, members of staff, in being confident to use the technology effectively?
Yes, so obviously as part of our strategy, we wanted to make sure that all of our staff members could use that board as soon as they walked in September. We had the changeover in the 6-week holidays, so on the first day of September, all of our staff members came back to all of these new boards in their classrooms. So I worked closely with Sam and with ViewSonic, and they've been extremely supportive in this element, whereby we sat down, we had a meeting in July, we've planned out a robust CPD day within one of our inset sessions to make sure that every member of staff that came in on that inset day received some level of training on how to use the board. So what we ensured was that in that first lesson on the 6th of September, after the inset days that we had, that every member of staff would go into that classroom and they could be confident in knowing that when they go in, they know how to connect, they know how to set up, they know how to run their lesson. And their lesson would run as if it had run back in July when they didn't have that board in there. So it is really important that, again, you build that confidence first. You know, we are on a slow journey with this. We're not quite accelerating to tablets and projecting wirelessly to the board on there. That's definitely something we'd like to explore as we go further, because again, I agree with Greg about the turning of the back to the board. It's integral that, especially now, we want to be walking around the classroom, we want to be giving AFL and feedback immediately, so we want to be able to have that technology. But in order to do that, we had that confidence and to be able to build the staff to be able to make sure that they can confidently use that without having any issues. So training is important, building confidence is important, so that they don't automatically go away from this technology. If they're not confident with it, they're not going to use it. If they have the confidence, then they're going to be more willing to use that, but also try new things, because they're not having to relearn things over and over again.
No, thank you. Cheers, Dan. Very well explained. I mean, Greg, I know we've done quite a bit of training with yourselves. Greg's school in particular worked very closely within the Google ecosystem. So, Greg, can you just talk a little bit about, firstly, about the training, but secondly, can you link it to how My Viewboard links within the Google ecosystem with your Google Drive, your Google Slides, and maybe give examples as to how you use that on a day-to-day?
Okay, with the training, I've had extensive conversations with Sam here to answer any questions that I would have, or some of the other colleagues I have at school, because when I put it out there, if anyone has any questions of how to use it, they come to me and I try to help them out. And if I can't get the answer, Sam helps me out. So we work between the two to
I've seen that firsthand. Greg's the tech man at the school. Greg's the man who's always having a knock on the door. So he's Mr. Tech, he's Mr. ViewSonic, Mr. My Viewboards at Greenwood Academy. Sorry, Greg, carry on.
That's okay. But in regards to using the Google ecosystem in the school, it integrates very easily. Once you sign in with your Google document, your Google ID, you could get access to your Google Drive. And once you get that, you could easily bring up all of your documents on your My Viewboard. So while I'm teaching, what I would do, sometimes I would record what I'm teaching so that I'm explaining what I'm doing, and while I'm annotating, I have a recording of it. So with that recording, once I've edited it, I can upload that recording up to Google Classroom, and then post it onto the Google Classroom for the students to see so that they can review whatever I've taught in that lesson. So it seamlessly fits together with Google Classroom.
No, I get it. I mean, having an MP4 recorded video of something that you've modeled explicitly, something you've explained, broken down into steps, it's powerful. So, and being able to do that nice and easily, put it straight onto Google Drive, Google Classroom, super important. Now, sort of on the other end, we've got Dan from Denbigh School, who I know are very much Microsoft house. So we've got Greg, works closely within the Google environment, Dan, Microsoft. Can you just give a few examples as to how the viewboards, how my viewboards integrates within the Microsoft environment?
Yes, so again, it's very similar in terms of what Greg experiences with the Google ecosystem. So my viewboard portal links directly to my OneDrive. And when I'm delivering lessons and annotating on my viewboard, again, I can save that into my OneDrive. And there's a really neat little feature within the viewboard which allows you to bring up the QR code on the board. So there's a QR code that appears on the board. This works with our sixth formers because in our lower school we have a no phones policy, but in our sixth form aspect we allow them to have their devices in lessons. So what I can do is once I've done that modelling, because it saves to my OneDrive, my students can then scan the QR code and then they can access all of those annotations, all of my viewboard resource directly on demand, offline, away from the classroom, so that all of that ad hoc work that we've done in the lesson, they can then revisit and then they can use that as part of their revision and as part of their reinforcement of learning outside the classroom. So it's a really new piece of resource that we have that we're gradually building into our lessons that actually students are finding really helpful, because we all have those lessons where we go off in a tangent. It's not part of our lesson resource. And previously, when we had our old whiteboards, you'd write it up there and then it'd disappear. You'd wipe it off, never to be seen again, and you'd never repeat that or replicate that in the same way. Whereas now, with that feature, with the OneDrive aspect and the integration with 365, we can now do that as well. And they can have that on demand and they can view that as many times as they want. Also, what's great with that element as well is we're allowed to amend or we can, through our 365 account, we can sign into the My Viewboard portal and we can personalize what it looks like when we go into the classroom. So I can change the settings for what my viewboard will look like compared to what my maths teacher will look like. So the maths teacher, they can amend their settings, which again is linked to the cloud, linked to their OneDrive. They can change it to graph paper, for example. I could change my viewboard to a yellow overlay. So whenever I go into my classrooms, I click onto my viewboard, the yellow overlay comes straight in. So again, it's helping with accessibility, making sure that we're meeting all the needs of those learners. And that, through the integration of 365 and Viewboard, is allowing me to go to every classroom and take that profile with me, so that whenever I go into my classrooms, it's ready there, available for me to use effectively with my students.
No, perfect. Thank you, Dan. I mean, the one thing that I take from there, listening to both Greg and Dan's responses, flexibility. Our offering, our software, our solutions are flexible in that these guys, whether in a Google environment or a Microsoft environment, they don't need to change the way that they work too drastically. When we're speaking about Google Drive and OneDrive or slides, PowerPoints, these things that are the teachers within their different environments are comfortable with. So it's less of a barrier, and it helps that training element that we've already spoken about. It makes it more seamless and easier for the teachers. Now, you mentioned there, Dan, you touched on at the end about adaptability. Obviously, as teachers, as educators, we need to be inclusive. Every classroom needs to be an inclusive classroom. Can you give any other examples to the audience, either of you now, on how you use technology to create a more inclusive classroom, maybe to adapt? Do you have any further examples that you could give? Because I know that's something that's a need for every single classroom. Every teacher needs to be able to adapt. So if you could give some further insight on that, that would be brilliant.
Yes, so we've also obviously got the subtitle element as well that we can add into there. So again, what we didn't have with our old projector and our old element there is the subtitles that we could put onto the board. So yeah, we had that subtitle element that we can now implement into our teaching and learning, which again previously with the old technology we had we weren't able to do. So for any of our EAL students, any of our hearing impaired students, they can now obviously have those subtitles on that board, so they can view those, see those, and work through seamlessly with that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we can change the overlay on the board. So depending on what type of learning need that our students have in the classroom, from a dyslexia element, we can change the tint on the board. So again, that's suiting their eyes, suiting in terms of what they need in order to be able to view that content that's on the board. So it's just making sure that we're meeting those learners' needs. We've also obviously got the recording element as well. So as Greg mentioned, you can record on the board as well. So for our students that might be visually impaired, we can record and talk through what we're working through, and then we can send that information to those students so that they can hear that back auditory. So again, it's meeting those needs as well. It's creating a really adaptive classroom environment, a really inclusive environment.
Okay, for me, it's a little bit different. So make it more inclusive for me. Because of the way how I utilize the view board, I can put multiple images of different levels so that the students can see what level they're supposed to achieve, or give some different ideas for them. So instead of everyone looking at the more complex shape, which the more advanced students will be, I have multiple different images, so that someone who may be struggling a little bit in the beginning, they could see where they're going to start and work their way through the different images in my lessons, so that they know how to progress and know where they can start and move along, so that everyone will get to the end. But I give them opportunity to see where they will start in my lessons and then where they can end.
No, great use of the technology there. And I like the idea, because I suppose having those levels, it doesn't put a barrier, it doesn't put a ceiling on where certain students can get to. So great approach, great. And lastly, just to sort of, as we begin to wrap things up, just a very open question to both of you. I'll start with Dan. Why do you like working with us? Is ViewSonic a good company to work with? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think since we had the initial meeting 12, 18 months ago, really extremely happy with how the partnership is developing. One thing that I've mentioned in the past is the personal feel that you get from ViewSonic. Although obviously Sam is spending a lot of time with Greg, and clearly Greg's asking a lot of Sam in terms of his queries. If I ask Sam a question, I don't ask Greg a question. I've only met him today. But if I ask Sam a question, he's always very personal with his response. He's very prompt with his response, and he creates the environment that makes me feel like it's just our school as part of ViewSonic. Although it's this multi-global corporation, as a school, we feel that we have a direct line to Sam and to Ian, who's the other colleague we work with. And it does feel like it's just us that's working with them. So, credit to these guys that are able to balance their time and give everybody the time that they deserve in order to make sure that we implement this technology so that students can get the best out of it, so that teachers can get the best out of it. And we're really looking forward to continuing that partnership and growing the use of that technology in our classrooms and hopefully taking it even further as we move on.
Yeah, so another PD day to look forward to in Feb.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll be returning and working with the teachers again, sort of for phase 2 of the training. So looking forward to continue with that relationship, Dan. And Greg?
Okay, I really love working with ViewSonic, because since we started our relationship, because I'm not a traditional teacher, I'm designing technology, I demand different aspects or different requirements from the view board itself. Because I do more technical and more drawing and not just words on the screen, I've had to have multiple conversations with Sam and his team to help me understand how to use it correctly. And also, anytime I come up with any issues that I may perceive as an issue, I go back to Sam, he talks to his team, and he comes back and we discuss it. A lot of the times as well, Sam's come over to see how I use my technology in my room. And then he's gone back and found out new ways for me to improve the way how I can use the technology better in the classroom for the students. So I think this really good personal relationship really helps. A lot of the products that ViewSonic has encouraged me to look at more products that ViewSonic may have so that I could implement it more into the classroom to make my lessons better and the experience for the students way better.
No, thank you, Greg. So just to sort of summarize there, it's obviously the hardware you utilize every day, the software, different software elements that you utilize, but the service is just equally integral to one, the relationship, but two, that teachers really understand how to use the technology. So I'm glad to hear that our service and the support and the relationship that we have, the working relationship, is making an impact. So few nice words to finish up on. So thank you, guys. Oh, well. All right, thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. Cheers.